My set of Star Trek wall decals arrived. For some reason, it included some things that aren't from Star Trek, so I'll just pitch those. Overall, very well done as a tribute to him, based on some of his work, but primarily just in the genre, giving the ambiance of his type of work. 2018, the debut of Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. As an avid reader of Philip K. Dick and a lover of his work, I felt they did a really good job with the series of capturing a lot of the same questions. Philip K. Dick, pretty much anything that deals with reality isn't real, what is the nature of reality, of self in the universe, etc. These crazy questions of identity and existence, it tends to go back to Philip K. Dick. Total Recall, a lot of the Terminator. The Running Man, not from him, but it kind of captures some of that ambiance. What is real? What is not? What is true? What is the nature of the universe and my perception of it? And some of the episodes dealing with the teeps or the telepath, I believe teep is a word that is used in some of his work. Some of the episodes are clear references to things that he wrote. Others are not. They are all good to one degree or another, but the ones that really stood out for me, the final episode, Kill All Others, this is evidence of really, really well done writing of a type that we weren't seeing a lot of it by 2018, and we certainly are not seeing it now in the era of woke. It is an obvious political commentary on the concept of otherness. They don't shy away from creating a one-party electoral dictatorship that encompasses all of North America, Mexico, United States, and Canada, and giving it that feel of the Soviet one-party system, which they would have gone out of their way anytime recently to make it Nazi Germany or fascist Italy and not tie it to the Soviets. But it is done in a way that is like good social commentary that was thought-provoking in an earlier time. It's not too specific. We get the whole story is about the sloganeering of kill all others, how it becomes first just dropped as a subtle thing, then there's some advertising, then there's some apparently subliminal messages, how it ultimately leads to some sort of bizarre genocide where essentially what we get by the end is the only thing that made one other was realizing that something was up with targeting others, which in itself is a great commentary, but it didn't give us a religious group, an ethnic group, a political group. It didn't give us any ideology. It is not real clear. There's no clear political agenda in the contemporary realm for the story. It puts it solidly in line with things that Philip K. Dick did, things that you find in the political commentary of earlier science fiction eras, Star Trek and all that. But when you bring it around to be literally today, you cheapen it and you disqualify a lot of what you're saying. You make it that terrible series Solos that I literally got like 5 minutes into, and the distant future and Anne Hathaway, and the first thing the computer does is talk about Donald Trump defecting to Russia hundreds of years ago. Just shamefully shallow, painfully contemporary, and destroying any attempt that was going to making a larger point. Kill All Others makes the larger point completely without. It is unnecessary to label the political movement. It is unnecessary to label the others. It is unnecessary to give any indication of it. They follow the pattern perfectly of the subtle suggestion in passing by the candidate, the little bit of messaging here and there, the sign, the subliminal messages, and how this leads to the genocide. The other really standout episode was Safe and Sound, in a future where people that don't want to live under constant surveillance and wear a surveillance device, the brand name is Dex, They have to live out away in communities that are called bubbles. And of course, people that live in the bubbles are always being blamed for terrorism. We don't get any evidence of that. What we find out in the course of the series, the show, is that apparently these are staged false flag terrorist attacks simply used to target people that don't want to be under constant surveillance. And the constant pressure that is immediately felt on entering the society by the young girl Foster and her mother, who come east with, out of the bubble and into this society, trying to negotiate. There's some sort of ongoing talks with the state about their freedom versus being blamed for everything and what they really are and what they really believe. But Foster is immediately pulled into all that cultural pressure that is there to conform. That if you don't have a DEX, you got to go through the special security line at the school. If you don't have the DEX, you can't access your lessons online. If you don't, even during what is portrayed as a terrorist attack, not a drill, you have to go to the safe room. But because you don't wear a DEX, you're not considered safe. So you're not allowed in the safe room. You have to stay outside until security comes by to restrain you, to make sure that you're not the active terrorist, because after all, if you weren't suspicious, you would wear a DEX and you would be part of the tracking system. It is phenomenally well done. And again, like Kill All Others, there's no real obvious, they're not really, they don't go out of their way to depict whether this is a left or rightist sort of government or what it is they're up to. You get the sense that it's more leftist just because no one's using this system to enforce any kind of values. We get the idea that, like Brave New World, people have sex with whomever they choose. At the school, she finds out she's supposed to have sex at the drop of a hat, because after all, everybody's sterile while they're on their meds, and they're all safe, and they've all got their DEX that keeps them safe. So you can have sex with anyone. So it really felt like a Brave New World sort of Bolshevik dystopia, but it does not go out of its way to do that. It doesn't go out of its way to harp on that. It is not meant to be any sort of traditionalist message, although we do feel the discomfort of Foster with that system, with her, if we're any sort of normal Homo sapien from the planet Terra orbiting the sun soul. But we get to feel with her the incredible social pressure that's brought to bear. Man, again, this would not have been made 2 years later. They never would have made this 2 years later. I mean, this says a whole lot about again, like good science fiction in particular, you project ideals into the future. You don't cheapen them by making them too contemporary, even though you're wanting people to think about the right and wrong of things, and you are wanting them to apply it, right? But you're not, when you're screaming at the screen about Donald Trump in 300 years in the future or whatever, you're just ridiculous. But when you're talking about the larger trends of tyranny, surveillance, freedom, privacy versus public knowledge, if you're not guilty of anything, why wouldn't you wear one? All of this social pressure. To make that in the year 2020 or after, I don't think Hollywood would have allowed it to be made, because it would easily be understood as COVID passports and other sorts of restrictions. I'm not sure am I allowed to say that on YouTube even? Am I allowed to say that without getting a strike against me on YouTube? We'll find out, I guess, if they monitor or someone reports it. But that whole idea that we're not taking away your rights, but if you got to go through the security line. That's your choice. That's your choice not to be available in the safe room. That's your choice that we lock you in handcuffs in a straitjacket when the alarm goes up. You have that freedom. What are you complaining about? Oh, well, because of the overwhelming social pressure to make you a second, third, fourth class citizen, of singling you out, making you wear the armband that shows that you aren't marked, and people not wanting to come near you because you carry venereal diseases. And I mean, the whole 9 yards of you got the yellow star, you're a filthy Jew. It's all right there in this episode. But like I said, they did this in this way where it could be any number of tyrannies throughout history, past, present, or future. And yet the technological tie-in, which again is sort of a Phil Dickensian sort of theme, the technological tie-in of how much do you allow the technology to control you and determine your pattern of living? How much do you control it and use it? And it is convenient, and having the DeX, she can do all this stuff. It's just like walking around with your cell phone is obviously what it's based on. There's all that access, but what do you give up for it? And then in our society already, the fact that everybody around you has one, it doesn't, don't carry a cell phone if you don't want to be tracked, and be absolutely disconnected from everything else, not be able to log in at your doctor's office easily, or any other million things, or buy a car that was made in the last 10 years because they all have the tracking in it, and everybody around you's got one anyway. So if for some reason the government or some agency were looking for you, they're going to know where you are. So it very much the same technological theme, paranoia, but at what point is it useful and helpful? And at what point are we trading away all of our freedom, our privacy? We sign away our data in the fine print. And boy, this episode, Safe and Sound, drives it home. And together with the whole theme of we've got to be safe against terrorism. But again, there's no evidence that there's any real terrorism at all having ever taken place in that universe around that structure. That all of this was about shepherding out of the society people that would not conform, and only using them as a boogeyman, and then allowing them back in only to the degree that they're useful and you can make them conform. Wow, it was a powerful episode, and politically, like I say, it could be any sort of tyranny throughout history, but boy, does it really speak to the things that have happened even since 2018. The third final one of the 10 that I really want to talk about individually is the commuter. Man who operates a train, a passenger train. Well, he works on a train line, taking tickets, selling tickets, planning routes. He finds a stop that does not supposed to exist. Traveling there, he finds this little paradise, this haven away from life as he knows it, where everything's wonderful. He ends up, by his visit there, he manages, not clear how the mechanics of this mysticism work. He wishes his life to be different. And so when he gets back off the train to home, home is different. His family has been struggling for years with the problems of having him and his wife had one child. They had a son. He's a young man now. He's psychotic. We're not given a clear diagnosis, but he acts out. He's scary. He's sometimes violent. The father admits being afraid. Mom doesn't. She says, he's my son. I'm not afraid of him. He wishes his son away, and he comes back to a life where he does not have the son, but him and his wife have a room that never became a child's room, and she's sad about that. She doesn't know the universe has changed. There's this really interesting, I have to admit, it was kind of dull. It was one of the episodes that, okay, this is going on. I'm trying not to look at my phone because in places it just didn't feel as strong as the other episodes that I commented on. But when it came around to it, and he goes back to paradise, having messed it up because he's unhappy with it's somehow the perfect town has become messed up because he's not happy with the outcome he wished for. And he tracks down the founder of the town, descended the daughter of the guy who built it. And that's a whole subplot from earlier. But he wants to get his life back the way it was, with all the fear and the misery and the suffering. And he wants his son back. And he ends up engaging in this whole argument with her. She accuses him of being selfish for wanting his son back because it's going to do damage to other people. He's going to do terrible things. You're going to visit him in prison. I can see the future. And he says, but this is my son, the one that I made. This is love. I have to have him back, and I have to love him. I've learned that lesson. I was wrong. And I'm always saying this, but I was shocked at the overall message. Now, on one hand, it's very Phil Dickian. Like, if you could change the past, do you want to change the past? Is it worth it to change the past? You know, those of us that know about Dick's life, his other writings, traveling through parallel universes, having visions of his long dead sister. Is she alive? She is in some other reality. Would you trade this one for that one? There's a lot of this is vintage Phil Dick. It's Phil Dickian, Phil Dickensian, whatever word. I like to use either one. And yet the way it comes across in The Commuter, it's a pro-life message sort of moment. Because everything that the woman in the town tells him are reasons for disposing of his son seem completely legitimate, don't they? That he's got all of these problems, and he's going to be psychotic. Why have him? You've done the genetic screening, and he's going to be autistic or whatever. Why not abort him? It's sort of the underlying. He could do damage to other people, and she sees the future. She says he will end up in prison because he'll do terrible things to people. What about those people? Isn't that worth it? And dad coming back and being like, no, he's still my son. I love him. I should never have wished him away. I was wrong. It isn't just guilt. It's love. I want him back. Knowing what's going to happen, having already been afraid of what was going to happen, having this strange entity woman in the town tell him for sure what's going to happen, and yet he still wants his son back and to live with the consequences of, you'd say, the original timeline. That woke me up and got my attention away from my phone. By the time that he was arguing with her over it, I was like, this really went somewhere. For a while it seemed like it was going to be Pleasantville, and for a while it was going to be like Pleasantville, but I can't stay here in Pleasantville. And it did a complete 180 on what I expected it was going to work out to be. And by the end, it was an incredible episode. So that's my quick review of Electric Dreams. Definitely a worthy tribute, I think, to Philip K. Dick and his way of thinking, not only in what they used of him, but the things that clearly are an homage, a tribute, are right up his alley, his genre, his sort of ambiance and feel. I really loved it. I wish there'd been more. I know there was a whole thing there for a while with this kind of fiction, Black Mirror, which I haven't reviewed yet, I get to. But Black Mirror was really good, and then Electric Dreams came out sort of like as a response. And maybe it's because we're living in a dystopian future that, in those 2 years since, that suddenly nobody wants to make that stuff right now. It's just kind of weird. So anyway, that's my view of it. It's on Amazon Prime. Go check it out. Love it. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time. Peace and long life. Oh, and X-Men power. Little fake Kurtzman check stickers.